I think the big misconception that a lot of people have about producers is they think producers are people who just find financing for their films.
I immediately fell in love with the story and the script.
We were looking for an arresting image that could be well represented in like a little icon on your TV.
There's something about bad sound that just reads as cheap.
This was a case of bend over and lose your filmic virginity, but you'll get a movie made and your name will be on it.
Anytime there's like that amount of money, there's going to be lawsuits.
There's nothing more important than the safety and the health of everyone who's working on a production.
It was like a passion project. They said, we want your movie. It was a bidding war. It was a major bidding war.
You can't buy that kind of publicity.
This is Producerville, the only podcast where we interview independent producers for your benefit so that you can hear what they have to say and you can become a better producer. Today, we're interviewing Christopher Wesley Moore, who I've actually known on Facebook. I saw that one of his movies received distribution on Amazon Prime, and I immediately got in touch with him and said, hey, you want to come on Producerville and tell everyone how you did it? And he said yes. The reason why Christopher appealed to me was because he lives in, what did he say, Nate? Was it Minnesota or Mississippi? Do you remember?
Mississippi, I believe.
Yeah, he's a guy out in Mississippi, made a movie and got it on Amazon Prime. And I figured there's a lot of filmmakers like that. So we got Chris on the phone. He was such a great guy. And he talked about his movie called A Stranger Among the Living, which was, I'll tell you about the subject matter in a second, but things to look out for. He talks about like fibbing a little bit as a producer to kind of get what you want. He talks about how he makes his movies for ultra low budget. We're talking low budget movies. But again, it's on Amazon Prime. So you want to hear what he has to say. He talks about the benefits of shooting in a town outside of Los Angeles. A lot of filmmakers are here in LA. So if you live in LA, this may not help you, but it will give you some insight to the benefits of shooting outside, you know, the film capital of the world. Oh, and we also talk about the headaches of working with the Screen Actors Guild, also known as SAG. Now, A Stranger Among the Living was not a SAG production, but we did talk about it because one of his previous productions was SAG. So we covered that a little bit because we haven't touched on it yet, I don't think, throughout the series.
Chris also talks about using the latest Blackmagic camera to film the project. And it was really interesting because a lot of times when we ask people about what cameras they use, you know, they just kind of, they don't remember, or they tell you what it was and they're just like, yeah, it was great. You know, he actually goes into detail about the pros and the cons of using that camera. And he also talks about his decision to not go through a major distributor this time. And he tells us about a website that you and I didn't even know existed that got his movie on Amazon Prime. So everybody out there definitely needs to listen for that.
Yeah, that's good information. When I looked up the site while we were on the call, I was like, oh, I didn't even know this existed. Just a quick note, I had a bit of an audio issue during the call. So I sound like I'm kind of like in a wind tunnel, but you can clearly hear me. But I wanted to point out, as a producer, we kept the show going. We didn't cancel and reschedule. We made it happen. So anyway, I fixed the audio since then. But that's what happens, guys, especially in this virtual world now. Now, the last thing I want to mention before we go to the interview is the subject matter of A Stranger Among the Living. It's a story about a school shooting, specifically a teacher that starts to see the undead after a school shooting. So obviously we wanted to start our conversation there and ask Chris what producing challenges he might have had based on the subject matter alone. Forget about casting and all of that, but it's like, did the subject matter cause a problem? And this is what he said.
No, I had kind of planned for maybe some kind of backlash, but there really wasn't much. I mean, the actress who plays the mom, she's not a big horror fan. So she was kind of concerned about, like, is this going to be kind of scary when I'm on the set? And I'm like, one thing you have to know is that the least scariest place on earth is a horror film set. It is the dumbest place you can ever be. Everyone everybody feels so stupid because, you know, you have all this fake blood and you're screaming and it just feels so dumb when you're actually doing it. And I'm like, I promise you, you're gonna be fine. And she's like, well, the script's kind of scary. And I'm like, but I promise you're going to be fine. And besides that, we had one location. The location that we used for the school was actually the same location that we used for all of the scenes in the group therapy scenes. And I remember I was scouting it and I was like, okay. So we just kind of need this for two nights. And you know, how much will that cost and stuff like that. And then they were like, so what's the film about? And I was like, cause it was a church. And I was like, I don't know if I should say like what it's actually about. And I was like, please don't ask for a script. Please don't, please, dear God, don't. And I was, in my head, I was like, I'm going to have to go back home and actually create a fake script just to like hand them, you know? And I was like, well, it's a story about guilt and people,
good one.
You know, that are in like a group therapy and they are trying to get better. And so I wasn't actually lying, you know, I mean, it wasn't a lie. It was true, but I withheld certain elements. That's really it though. So
sure. And I think, you know, that's a very smart producing trick, is just saying just what you need to say because you have a goal to accomplish. And it's like, you can white lie, you know, does it really matter? You know,
exactly.
and if it really doesn't, then you can lie.
It's like, who am I really going to hurt here? Like, you know, it's not like someone's going to see the movie and be like, oh, that's my mom's church. I wonder how they shot there. I wonder if they know that this is a horror film.
Exactly.
You know? I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was one point where we were shooting the scene where everybody's, you know, covered in blood on the ground. But then the janitor decided to come in at this exact same time, and he just took one look at all of that and was just like, what's going on here? Because I don't think they had told him exactly what was going to happen. And I was like, don't worry, we're going to clean everything up. Like, so he must be very jaded because he was just like, what's going on here? I'll just come back later. I was like, oh, this is just one of those things you can never plan, which is the joy of indie film is that you can plan until you're blue in the face, but something's gonna happen the day of the shoot and you're not going to be planned, and it's just you just kind of have to roll.
Do you mind telling us about your financing journey and how you were able to make that work?
Sure, because there's really not much to tell. I keep my budgets freakishly small. That's really the trick, is that I beg and borrow every location, every actor. Most of the actors in the films that I create are just basically my friends and are just like, hey, you want to make a movie? And they're like, are you going to bring pizza? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, sure. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, it's just like, let's go have some fun. And so that definitely saves a lot, you know? And so really there's not as much to raise as you would think, because sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I know we could get that one house because my friend knows the person that owns the house. So if I write that scene to take place in that house, we can get that house for 2 nights and we don't have to pay a thing and it'll be great. But then there are some locations like the church where we shot, where I actually did have to pay something, but it wasn't much because, you know, they kind of understand. And also because of where I shoot, making films is actually still kind of like a cute sort of a thing there. They're kind of charmed by that because it doesn't happen every day here. You know, in LA or New York, it's like, oh, great, they're shooting another movie again, you know. My sort of indie film idols are people like John Waters and George Romero, who basically never left their towns. Like they shot everything there.
Right.
And I kind of love that because I think it makes them very personal because they know every nook and cranny of the town. Whereas if you are in Hollywood and you have to shoot on a sound stage, then you have to think, well, how are we going to design the set and all of that stuff. And then I've also been told that if you shoot in LA, you need a permit to just shoot in your house, which I'm like, how does that even work? I wouldn't even do that because how are they going to know? I mean, that's the thing. Like, how do they know that you're shooting in your house or apartment? You know, I'm like, that's so weird.
So do you mind telling us what the budget was for the film?
Altogether, so IMDb is a liar because see, back in the day, you couldn't submit your stuff to IMDb unless you had a budget of over, like, I can't remember how much. So I just got used to lying, and so I think it says like $20,000, but it was like, I don't know, maybe like 10,000, I think. So it was not much at all. I mean, it was, and I think, and part of that was the camera too, because I had just gotten the camera, but I don't really include that because I was like, well, I'm going to camera for like my next few films. So it's kind of, it's a good thing to purchase.
Yeah. I mean, listen, especially in horror movies, I mean, you can make a really great horror movie for a low budget. And I think that thinking kind of went away for a while. I think once the studios are making giant, $15 million horror movies and stuff, it's like, no, I mean, you can actually, I mean, Oren Peli made Paranormal Activity for $15,000. I mean, it was great and it made all this money. So
exactly. I love horror so much because not only do you have so much freedom to tell the stories that you want to tell, but you also, you don't have to have big name stars. That's not a requirement. And that's really what seems to cost so much. And I because I look at all the films that I love, and most of them were, they were put together in like their mom's basement and stuff, and I just find them very charming and kind of homespun, and I like that.
What camera did you use to film the movie?
Oh, it's the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera K. I think it just came out maybe 2 years ago, I think.
Oh yeah, I think you're the first person that I know that's actually used it for a shoot. Would you recommend it?
Really? Absolutely. Battery life is a problem, so you have to get a bunch of those. So pretty much in between takes, I was like going and changing the batteries and charging the ones that I just used, and so that takes up a bit of time, but but I think the picture looks great, and it's easier to color grade and all of that stuff, and I'm very pleased with it. I used the original Blackmagic for my last two films. And I just kind of thought, well, I'll try to upgrade here for this one. And I do actually think it really helped.
The camera shoots in 4K, correct?
Right.
Yeah, and that's amazing because it's like, and it's like what, $2,000, something like that, $2,500.
Shoot, I think it was a little bit less than that. But the problem was that I ordered it before they were putting them out in bulk. So I was on some kind of a waiting list. And so it was getting really close to the shoot and we didn't have the camera. And I was like, okay, well, they're good, but it's at some point, right? And it was like 3 weeks out and I was like, oh my God, like it's not here. Like, what are we going to shoot this on? Like, I still have my old camera. I could make it work. I would like to not have to, but I could. And so I was so nervous, and it finally came in like 2 weeks before we were supposed to shoot. So I was terrified. That wasn't fun.
Yeah, that's stressful.
Yeah.
So talking a little bit about the casting process, talk a little bit about how that went. And obviously, you play a main character in the film. Was there like producing challenges with casting yourself, or was that kind of conscious decision? So it was like one less person you had to pay extra to be in the movie?
Looking back now, I'm glad I did it. But at the time, I was trying to find this character. And for some reason, nobody understood how to play this part. I mean, we got a lot of people that came in, and some came sort of close, but a lot of them just didn't get, they just couldn't really read the character. And, you know, as the writer, I was like, why can't they find, I mean, it's so obvious that he should be played like this, you know? And so I was like, well, I mean, I guess I could do it, because it was kind of cutting down to the wire. And well, if I'm going to do it, I better just go ahead and do it. And I had like a cameo in my last film, and that was all right, because I think I only had to work like 2 days, I think. So that wasn't horrible. But I thought, you know, this is a much larger part, and I'm scared that if I'm trying to direct myself, that I'm not going to have enough time for everybody else. So I really had to know exactly what I was going to do on the set, which actually helped, because I had to plan exactly every line of dialogue, every gesture. I had to know exactly what I was going to do so that I could be present for everybody else. And so looking back now, I think it was actually a blessing, because it was one less person to have to try to direct on top of everything else, because I knew exactly what I was going to do on the set. But then as for casting everybody else, you know, it was, I wrote most of these parts for people that I know. So that helped a lot. And I was just like, hey, so I'm going to make another movie. Do you guys want to play a part like this? And they were like, sure. I was like, well, we're going to shoot in April. Are you free? And they were like, yeah. And so it was, most of it was like that, except for the lead. Jake, I had never seen. And I had the hardest time trying to find that part. Once again, there were a lot of people that got the darkness of the part. There were some that kind of got the humor of the part. And Jake was somewhere in between. And I kind of liked that. He sort of got some of the humor, but then he was also so serious. And I thought, okay, I think I can work with that. I think he's going to be able to do this. And he was pretty local too. I think he lived about 10 minutes away from where we shot most of the film, you know, so that was nice.
Going back again, because you were talking a little bit earlier about the locations and how you know, basically were like, well, I can create this scene for this house that I know that we will have access to. Right. And you're kind of saying the same thing with like the casting. It kind of reminds me of like how Kevin Smith made Clerks. Yeah. Like he just cast all his friends in it, and he knew that he had access to a convenience store and a video store because he worked there, so they could shoot there after close. So how, like, do you think that helps, you know, aspiring producers to kind of use what you have instead of trying to figure out how you're going to pay for, you know, how we're going to get a permit to shoot here, or figure out to pay somebody to shoot on this location?
Oh God, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is a time and a life saver. I mean, because personally, I hate to write action scenes for locations that I don't have yet. Because I'm like, okay, well, this character needs to get chased, but I don't know, like, are we going to have a 2-story house? Are we going to have a 1-story? They go up the stairs. Can they climb out the window? I don't know what I have. So when I have a location, I can see it, and I can see, okay, well, that house has that one door there, and it's that sliding glass door, so they're going to run out of that, and then there's that gate, and then there's the fence, and they can climb that, and so I can see it perfectly. And that helps so much. And I think a lot of people, when they're trying to make a film, you know, for some reason, everyone has these lofty dreams. Like, well, I'm not going to make my first film until I can raise $15 million and get Nicole Kidman, and it's going to be this really big, like, space opera. And I'm like, okay, but you're not going to be able to make that until you can make something smaller, because no one's going to give you money if you've never made anything up to this point. Right. And I think people need to start smaller. You know, just get your friends together and use someone's apartment and just come up with a story that could take place in that space. Use what you have. And that's a great way to start, because you actually have something to show for it. And it's not just like, well, I want to make a movie. But if you haven't, you know, no one's going to care. You have to at least kind of show that you can do something with essentially nothing.
Just so that our listeners can get an idea of how much footage is captured in a day on a film set for an indie movie, how many pages did you shoot per day? I'm sorry, how many days was the shoot again?
Altogether, it was 20-something days, but because everybody lived pretty close, we could kind of scatter it. So someone would be like, well, I do want to shoot on Tuesday, but my kid has like a baseball game. So could we maybe push it to Friday? And I'll be like, sure. So it was much more flexible. So I could work around everybody. And also, that also helped because we didn't get as tired. There were a few weeks where we shot consecutively. Like we shot like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then took a break and came back on Friday and then maybe shot on Sunday. It was a bit more scattered, which I think helped because people just didn't get as burnt out. But some days we did have to cram a lot in there. There were some days, I know we shot more than 10 pages, I think.
That's a lot.
It's insane. Absolutely insane. But then on my last film, there was one day where I think it was close to 20 pages, and it was the worst day of the shoot, obviously, because everyone was exhausted and they were like, I don't know my lines, we're jumping around, and it was the worst day I've ever been on a set in my life. But we had the location for one day, and I was like, well, we have to cram everything in. It was a disaster, but I think I did learn from that, and I said, okay, at the most we're going to do 10 at the very most.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot. I mean,
it's a whole lot. Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends on like what you're filming too. I mean, if it's just if it's 5 pages of 2 people sitting in a at a table in a kitchen, you could probably do that. But if you're going to different rooms and you have 5 setups per scene and all that, it's like it's a nightmare. So let me ask you a question. As an indie producer, did you have production insurance?
I actually did not for this film. I did for the last one because we had, I'm trying to remember if we had 1 or 2 SAG actors, and SAG is a whole other ball game there. That is the biggest headache of your life.
It's a nightmare. Yeah.
It's horrifying. So I highly suggest if you make your first film, even just a short film, do not go SAG. Just you need at least one thing under your belt before you go into that fiery pit of hell. I mean, that's God, it's horrifying.
I mean, it sounds like you're exaggerating, but it's not. Like
it's terrifying.
It is. It's
horrifying.
Like they could shut you down. Oh my gosh, I worked on a project once, and it was like Friday at 3:00, and they go, if you don't drive down here right now, and I lived in the area, so I was able to do it. But they asked me for something. I needed to sign something, and they're like, if you don't come down today, right now by 5:00, like we're shutting your production down. And I was like, how can you do that? Like, are you
so ridiculous?
It was ridiculous.
It's so scary.
So for everyone listening, and tell me if this was your experience, Chris, is like, so you have a SAG actor or actors, right? And then you want to book them for a certain amount of days. You have to write a check that you give to SAG up front for all of those days, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they hold on to it. And so, and I think that's the insurance that they have. So if you default, or if you can't pay them, or you run off or disappear or something, they can at least use that money and pay the actors, and then everyone's happy because they all got paid.
I'm assuming, yeah.
Yeah, but then what you have to do is pay everybody again. You have to then pay, say it's $5,000 for all of that. You then have to pay your actors $5,000. So now it's like you have to account for at least $10,000 up front, and you're going to get your deposit back. But that's what you're saying is then after everything's said and done, you're like, okay, guys, here's my paperwork. I paid everybody. Give me back my deposit. And then it takes 30 days.
They want the check in the mail, like the day after they've wrapped, of course. And so I was like, it'll be fine. I'll just go ahead and send this out because they're going to give that deposit back any day now. And it just kept like lingering. And I was like, oh shit. No. This is bad. This is really bad.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying. I think I lost about 10 years of my life on that shoot. And so I learned a lot. So it wasn't all in vain. That's what counts. You got to learn. And nightmares. PTSD from that shoot.
What was your biggest producing challenge during the production?
Every film has one day of the shoot that you were absolutely dreading because you just know like everything could possibly just fall apart. And for me, that was the night where we shot everything at the gas station, because where we shot was actually a pretty well-trafficked part of that town. And I had the permission from the people that ran the station, and it was on a Sunday, and it's the Bible Belt, so everything's kind of closed on Sunday. So they were like, you can shoot here, but we can't close down the gas pumps. So people are going to kind of come in while you shoot, and they might just pump your gas, you know? I was like, okay, well, I think we could work around that. Yell cut and just wait for them to leave. And so I was terrified. And then it turned out it was going to be storming. And I thought, we're having all these actors here, because I think there were like 8 actors, I think, that were going to be there just kind of on the side, just kind of chilling out. And I thought, well, let's just hope that they don't, you know, draw too much attention to themselves. And then I thought, well, we're going to have an actor drenched in blood. That's going to look a little sketchy. And then we're going to have the storm. We're going to have an actress in a nightgown screaming at the top of her lungs. And I'm like, this is going to look weird. And police might come. And I was terrified the entire day. And damn it, if that was not the most relaxed day of the shoot that I've ever had. I mean, it was just so calm. And right at the end, we had just gotten the last shot, and the actor was drenched in blood, and a cop finally pulled in and just was like, what are y'all doing? And we're like, making a movie. And he was like, cool, keep on going, and just drove off. I was like, that's the South. They're just like, as long as you're not, you know, screwing with anybody's property or anything like that, you're fine. That was nice. I was like, what a great way to end this crazy day. It was just to have him be so supportive of indie film, you know?
Exactly. But I'm just letting you know that in LA, if you see the cop, they're not just going to be like, keep on going, see you later. They're like, no, they're going to be like, can you show me your permit, please? And all they do is cause problems here.
They will take everything that you have. They'll just be like, give me the camera, give me the microphone. You know, they'll take everything, or so I've been told. I have heard that's happened before, you know, so that's terrifying. I can't even imagine that.
Can you talk about the editing process? Like did you edit it yourself? What system did you use? Scoring, mixing, all that stuff.
Yeah, I used Adobe Premiere. The editing process was, it wasn't too tricky, because after my last 2 films, I kind of knew like, okay, well, I need to get as much coverage as I can, because I had some problems with my last 2 where sometimes I was a bit rushed and we didn't get quite enough. So I kind of overdid some scenes here. And so I always had more than enough to work with. And first cut actually clocked in about as long as the script was, which is very, very rare, because sometimes it's like a bit too long. But then we discovered that there were some pacing problems. So I think all in all, I think I actually maybe like 15 minutes of the movie. I think there were a few scenes. I had a really big scene that I cut out. That was kind of a more dramatic scene. And the funny part about that was that I sort of knew instinctually, like, this scene might not need to be in here. So I would ask everybody, I would make them watch it and say, scene needs to be here. And they would say, oh, it's a great scene, you have to keep it, maybe trim it down a bit. And I would be like, well, what do I trim? And they'd be like, I don't know, but just to make it shorter. And I'm like, that doesn't help me, you know? So and so finally we cut that scene out, and because someone, it was a critic who actually said, you know, I watched the film and I want you to know I liked it, but I think there's some parts that could be tweaked a bit. And he one scene, it's a good scene, but I don't think it needs to be there. And I said, thank you for finally telling me the truth. Thank you. And then music wise, I had a composer that I worked with on my last, and I pretty much told him from the start, like, I'm gonna need you to get ready because I want you to compose this one. And he composed that score like insanely fast. Like I think I gave him a rough cut on like a Friday, and I think by the next Friday I had like a bunch of the cues, and I was like, oh my god, like how are you doing this? This is insane.
Wow.
And that way though, because he's just so creative and wonderful. But yeah, I mean, I showed a few to certain people that I really trusted, and that was kind of like my test screen, I guess, and sort of made some changes from that, and that's kind of how I came to the final cut of the film.
So your film was part of the Oxford Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about the whole festival experience? Did you have to submit your movie to, like, did you submit it to like a ton of different festivals? Like what was that like?
Oh yeah, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with festivals, because you never know what you're going to get, because I've done the festival thing with all of my films, and it's weird which ones take some stuff and don't take other stuff. It's fascinating because you never know what kind of goes into the choice. The problem with Oxford, though, it's a wonderful festival, but it happened during, I think it was supposed to take place in March, I think, and it was supposed to be the end of March, and COVID hit, and they had to do something, and so they canceled it, but then did it as a kind of a virtual thing. And that was cool though, because they actually let you profits. So they kept half and I got half, which was really cool. I've never seen a festival that's ever done that. I thought that was really cool. So it seems like that's kind of where they're going now until COVID is a little more under control, I suppose. And so it's just a brave new world. And I've been to some festivals that were great, and then I've gone to some where I'm like, there are two people auditorium, and I'm a little like, I don't know what to do. Like, I came all this way, and it's like two people here. It's just like depressing. So it's a bit of a mixed bag.
How did you secure the Amazon Prime distribution deal?
Well, what happened was my last two films were put out by, I guess, what you would call legit distributors. And it was not a pleasant experience. I've not seen any money. And so I thought, well, how do I do this by myself? I had never done that. And so I heard about this website called Film Hub. And you can submit your movie, and they'll actually send it to all these kind of streaming platforms. And they'll screen it and kind of see if it's their thing, and they'll approve it, and then all of a sudden you're on there. And so far I've had no problems. It seems like it's going fairly well, but it's still a little too early to tell. But I know at least I'll make a little bit more than I did on the last one, so I'm just like, that's a win.
Right. Did you do any press for it? Did Amazon acquire the film and then do any press to sort of mobilize people to go and see it, or was that sort of you doing that as well?
That was all me. It's actually kind of hard to get on a website like Bloody Disgusting. My last film got on there, I think, only because I had an actor in the film that was like semi-well known, and I think that kind of helped. That's really the only thing I can think of, because I was like, it's weird that film got covered on there, but nothing else will. And I was like, well, that did have that one thing, so maybe that helps. Yeah. But so that makes it really tough, because you're trying to promote the film. I think the trailer, I think it was a teaser, was on Rue Morgue, and that helped. And then I've been doing some Facebook ads too, which have actually helped a lot more than I had thought. Actually got a lot of traffic to the page, and the movie, and that's been great. And but see, the whole thing was, on my last film, I was told that there would be a lot of marketing, and the reason I have gotten paid is because there was a marketing fee that that they never recouped, apparently. But the funny part is that they did no marketing for the film. I'm like, I don't know where the money went, because I see no marketing. I think they had like one article on one website, and that was it. And they put together the single worst trailer I've ever seen in my life. And it was a bit of a disaster. And so I thought, well, I can do that. I mean, that's nothing, you know? So I thought, well, if I could do that, then why am I trying to use somebody else?
Yeah.
And that's kind of made me think, maybe I should just try to do this by myself. This time I have my own art, and I'm happy with the art. And because my last two, I got my own art. I got a guy that creates these wonderful posters that I just absolutely love. And I turned those in to the distributors, and they were like, this is going to make people think that the film is old, so we're going to go with our own. It's like just this sort of like tacky, like Photoshop stuff. And it just looked, it looked kind of generic, and I mean, very professionally done. I mean, it looks good, but I didn't really think it kind of sold the film.
Yeah.
And we actually got some pushback, because the first film that they did was a feature film, and the artwork made it look like it was some kind of like Rosemary's Baby kind of thing. And people got really mad, because they were like, I thought this was going to be some kind of a supernatural demon baby film, and it's a slasher movie. And then the ones who would have actually wanted to see the slasher film were turned off because it didn't look like one. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, this isn't going to work out well.
Yeah.
But they think that they know, because it's going to sell in Walmart. And I'm like, well, that's my audience, really. But okay.
Like, yeah, exactly. It's so funny that you say Walmart. Like, that's a huge distribution channel.
Oh, yeah.
That I didn't even know. I was like, what is it with Walmart? And you'd be surprised when you see the numbers. Walmart moves a lot of product. If you can get into Walmart, everyone's happy. That's like the message I would get. Oh, you're in Walmart? Cool. So.
Yeah, literally everything that they said we had to change was just so we could get into Walmart. And I still don't think we actually got in. So I'm like, we did all of that and we didn't even get in. Like, what is this?
I mean, you even go to a Best Buy now and they barely have any physical media at all, but you go to Walmart,
it's so sad.
And they got a giant physical media section.
Oh,
so.
yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would have done differently as a producer on the movie? So forget the writing, the directing, but as a producer, do you look back and you say, yeah, I would have done that differently?
There was one location. We used a house for 2 nights, and I had gotten the location through a friend of a friend. And what I learned is, don't ever do that. You have to go directly to the source, because things get kind of lost in translation. And so the first night, everything was great. We shot like 3 scenes, and we were about to start the 4th one, and they came home. Y'all are still here? And I was like, well, yeah, we have like one more scene to shoot, and then we're done for the night. And they were like, oh, well, we thought you were going to be out of here by like 10. And I was like, well, we started at like, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, we're going to have some stuff to work out, And I don't think people understand how long it actually takes to shoot a scene. Like, you can say, well, we're only going to shoot 1 scene in your house. So they're like, okay, cool. So you'll be here for what, like 30 minutes and an hour? I'm like, no, maybe quite a few more than that. But I always like to tell them that it's going to be longer than it actually is, so that when we are done, they're like, oh, that's not as bad as I thought, Yeah. But somehow things had gotten lost in translation, and they came home early. So I guess we're going to have to come back here. And they wouldn't agree upon a day and time. So for like 2 or 3 weeks, I was like, hey, can you talk to the people that own this house? Because like, we need to shoot the rest of the stuff there. And it just took forever. And finally they agreed to one more night, and we just had to squeeze everything in. There were times when I thought, well, maybe we could go to a different location and try to pretend like it's the same place, which is not unheard of, but I just thought, they notice, it might not really match. So going back there wasn't a treat, because I kind of always was sort of on edge a bit, because I was like, okay, I told them we'd be done at 11, but the last time I said the exact same thing, and they were back and they weren't happy. So I was constantly like looking over my shoulder and being like, no, we can't do another take of that because they might be back soon. And it was a bit rushed.
What are you working on now? And, is there anything you'd like to promote or talk about?
Well, I'm working on a script right now. I mean, God knows when I can actually, film it, but it's kind of a dark tale. It's sort of like Flowers in the Attic meets Suspiria. I don't know. It's very strange. It's a very strange movie, and I'm thrilled about it. It's very, very different, and I've always wanted to do a fairy tale and sort of a Hansel and Gretel type of story, and it's going to be really fun. I'm so excited about it, and so hopefully I can maybe start that in the summer if everything goes well and the world is not ending. I don't know, because everything's so nuts now. You can't really plan anything. So if it happens this year, great. If it happens 5 years from now, it's gonna get made. But it's just a question of when.
Well, Chris, I got to tell you, it's been wonderful talking to you about your movie. And we've been Facebook buddies for years, and it was just great to finally have a conversation talking about this great movie business that we're in.
Fascinating.
And I can't wait to check out your other films.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has really been a blast.
All right. You have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've known Chris pretty much on Facebook for years, but we've never talked. So it was really, really cool to talk with him. On Facebook, I'm friends with tons of horror movie fans. A lot of them are filmmakers, and eventually I end up crossing paths with most of them somehow. But I truly found A Stranger Among the Living to be a very inspired movie. I mean, it was really heavy subject matter. And so I was just, when I read the description, I went, oh, I've got to see this movie. So even if I didn't know him, I know I would have watched the movie. There's some really good ideas in it. And if you like movies like It Follows, it reminded me of Stir of Echoes in a way as well. So anybody out there listening, I think you should watch Chris's movie. It's a really, really well done movie.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast features producers of all levels. You have award-winning producers, you have first-time producers that live in LA, producers that don't, and Chris is a great example of a non-Los Angeles-based filmmaker that's making low-budget movies and getting them distributed. So we really hope this interview inspired you.
Didn't he sound like a super nice guy too? Like you want to hang out and chit chat about horror movies?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Order a bunch of pizza.
Right.
And he mentioned
work with him.
Yeah, exactly. And he mentioned pizza. And our last couple episodes were like, "Don't serve pizza to your crew."
It's funny. It's funny how many times we said that, but how many producers are like, you got to get that pizza in there, and it's like, oh my gosh, are we wrong? Like, what is happening?
There was a part in the conversation with Chris that I actually took out. It just wasn't fitting the rest of the show, but it was about if he moved to LA and he filmed a movie here, he would see, as a filmmaker, the way that he's been doing it, he would see a radical difference. Like, you can't serve pizza, and yes, you're going to have to pay for your permits, and no, none of your friends are going to allow you to film a movie like in their house. But I think it was just self-evident listening to the podcast and the content of the podcast that of course would be the situation. But I remember thinking that in my head, like, pizza gets you really far in Mississippi, but not in LA. So. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Chris Wesley Moore, and please check out A Stranger Among the Living, and we will see you next week on Producerville.